On today's episode, we are talking about the most important conversation you can have with yourself and how to discover your true purpose.
At Initiative One, we're igniting a leadership revolution by helping organizations eliminate the drama, improve decision-making, and win as a team. Join Dr. Fred Johnson on the Leadership Initiative podcast as we uncover insights to maximize your impact and transform your life.
Welcome back to the Leadership Initiative podcast. I'm Tony Reale, and of course, I'm with Dr. Fred Johnson. Dr. Fred, it's great to have you here today, and it's exciting to talk about stuff.
Thanks, Tony. I love how you're in the shotgun seat today.
That's right, yeah.
And I get to answer the questions, and so here we go.
Yeah, you often get a chance to interview some amazing people on the podcast, but you know we need to always have that chance to let you shine and get some time for you to be interviewed by somebody. So I thought I'd step up today and take that opportunity. And so today, you know, we've got every monthly, we get to go to an amazing think tank. And I thought it would be fun to just take the topic that's going to be coming up in tomorrow's think tank and just do another breakdown, kind of be more conversational about it. And so the topic is the most important conversation you can have with yourself. And so tell me, just give me, what is that conversation? What should we be having with ourselves?
The conversation that we ultimately have with ourselves is, I'm of infinite worth, I'm enough, and I got this. That sounds so simple, but in reality, that's not the self-messaging or the self-conversation that we have on a daily basis. For most people, it's more like this. I hope people don't find me out. I really don't want people to know me, because once they know me, they're not going to like what they see.
That imposter syndrome.
Yeah. And we know that the vast majority, higher than 90% of the population, deals with the imposter syndrome. The other 10% deals with the imposter syndrome, but they're not self-aware to even know that they deal with the imposter syndrome.
You know, one thing that for me personally helped a ton when I dealt with imposter syndrome over the years was really embracing it. Like giving it a big hug and going, okay, I realize why you're there. You're there. That voice in my head is there to protect me and to try and prevent me from doing things that could be dangerous. And so instead of going at it from this is bad or evil, or I got to knock it down, it's give it a big hug and say, it's okay. It's like a little kid or something like that. Like, it's going to be okay. So how do you work through that though? Because sometimes it feels like every day I got to have that conversation with myself, and it's a hard one to have. And sometimes you feel guilty that why haven't I figured this out yet?
Well, you know what? It's part of the human experience, and we talk about how all of us are impacted by some key events in our lives. We're impacted by our families that we grew up in. They gave us, especially our mom and dad or our mom and dad figures. They gave us messages about ourselves to ourselves that we didn't even know that they were giving, and they didn't even know they were giving. And we follow. I wish you were more like your brother, or why don't you be like the boy next door, or you know what, you could be so much more than you are. So those messages, we follow, we internalize. Also, the messages of people in our lives outside of our family, coaches, neighbors, people in our at church, our teachers, our counselors, who say things to us that we grab onto, and they become part of that self-narrative, that ongoing endless stream of tape that goes on every day. And then the other one is critical events in our lives. I call them impact moments that have such weighty influence that they become the sifter of how we see reality. And we know that the average person, on a scale of 0 to 10, we've been able to find a way to measure a person's self-belief level. The average is actually 2.7, which says, man, I'm not enough. I hope that people don't figure that out. And somehow I have to overcompensate by outside appearances. I have to do more to earn people's approval, and that my value is not coming from me being me. My value is coming from who do you want me to be? And it's a no-win situation. So what we know is that when a person begins to change their self-narrative to a more accurate, honest, positive self-view, we know that you have to get your self-belief level somewhere around a 7 or an 8. And believe me, it's possible. We see it all the time. At 7 or 8, my inner narrative, that stream of what I say to myself every day is, I can do this. You know what? I am enough. I have failed, but it doesn't mean I'm a failure. And no matter what someone tells me what I can't, shouldn't, won't do, I'm not going to buy their narrative. I'm going to bet on myself for the rest of my life. Those are the kinds of self-narratives that a person at 7 or an 8 or above begins to have. And so we're in the, I live every day to help people to begin to believe the truth about themselves, that they're of infinite worth, and that they have a purpose in their lives that is so powerful, so worthwhile, and don't be limited by other people's limiting beliefs that they want to put on you.
Well, let me ask you this. A lot of people would sometimes look at that and say, well, you're being unrealistic. You're being too optimistic. You're not having a healthy attitude or understanding of the reality of the situation, or you're going to be too pompous or too full of yourself. You need somebody to knock you down a peg. I mean, I'm sure you've probably seen the occasional spouse that goes, looks at the other spouse and is like, all right, okay, don't say too many nice things about him. He's actually not that great at home or whatever. There's people that feel that need to correct or to hold themselves back. What do you say to them? Like, are you being unrealistic? Are you being too pompous if you start to really self-motivate yourself and feel like you're above that?
So here's what I would say. What is realistic is this. Every one of us struggle every day. We're surrounded by people every day who tell us what we can't do, shouldn't do, won't do, can't do. And it is a relentless journey uphill to overcome those messages. And so when I talk about these things, I'm not being idealistic. I'm just trying to equip you with instead of carrying around a water pistol all the time against someone who has a massive arsenal of firepower, to begin to give you the tools to begin to compete in a world that wants to see you fail. And so when I talk about these things, we're giving them the tools to help them begin to compete in a world that wants us to lose. If you see that as idealistic, quite frankly, I don't want to hang out with you. I don't want to hang out around someone who sees that lifting people up and giving them encouragement and helping them to believe more in themselves is a bunch of foo-foo. I don't want someone that has been so toxified that when they see joy in someone else's life, they have to try to steal that from them. And so really, if they would say that's really idealistic, you've just given me messages about you. Do I really want to hang around you on a Friday night?
Absolutely. Yeah. And the thing too, there's the old adage, you attract more flies with honey than with vinegar. Or the little idea that when you're training a dog, you don't beat it up every time it does something wrong. You give it a treat when it does something right.
That's right.
And so that positive reinforcement can be the thing that guides people into the direction of then realizing their full potential.
Yeah, we don't respond to shame. We respond to encouragement and being lifted up, and we respond to hope. And so if I find out that there's a better way to do it, and to help people change the direction of their lives by how they think and how they regard themselves, then I'll do it. But until then, I don't think there's any science out there that would prove otherwise.
So that negative voice that people have in their head, there's we talked about the protection that it can be, and but there's a lot of other factors that line up to that. I think a big part of it today is social media, and you're looking at Instagram and Facebook and these platforms, and you see the idealized version of people's personas and of what they portray themselves as. And a lot of people sitting in their sweatpants with crumbs on their shirt at home and going, man, I'm nothing like that. They've really got it all figured out. What am I doing with my life? You see those people that have hit a level of success in their 20s and you're in your 40s or 50s or 60s and going, I've never hit that. What am I accomplishing? And that expectation, that self put on ourselves, expectation of I'm not meeting up to that level that I should be. What do you do with that? How do you overcome that?
So I guess you're asking me how do I respond to the endless parade of video that we get on social media about people who appear that they have it all together, and I can't relate to that. Well, let me tell you a story. Every one of us struggle with our self-worth. You show me as a former counselor and a therapist and an expert in human behavior. If you show me someone who appears to have it all together, I'm immediately going to become suspect of you, because none of us have it all together. None of us. Every one of us have stories of regret. Every one of us have things that if we had to do over again, we would have redone it in a nanosecond. Every one of us have had stories of failure, things in our skeletons in our closet. That's the human condition. Every one of us are imperfect. We all have a sense of brokenness. And I have found that it's the people who own their brokenness and who can say, look, I'm just going to tell you, I struggle. I'm going to tell you that there are things that I'm really afraid of. There are things in my life that trigger me. We all can relate to that. And if someone it comes across as, and when I used to work with people and I would spend time with them, and within 2 or 3 sessions, I couldn't really get a sense of who they are. I knew they weren't being real with me. And so I would say to people that if you're seeing someone paint this unrealistic, idealistic picture of who they are, they're probably overcompensating on an outside picture of how they feel on the inside. The people who own the fact of how broken that we are the healthiest people that there are. And that's such an irony. It's probably not what you're going to want people to say, but I'm attracted to people who are real, who are genuine, who have faux pas, but at the same time, they've done so much good. We are a mess. And it's in the messiness that greatness can come out.
Well, with all those things, we always see those charts of like the iceberg, where it's like this is that we see the success across the surface, and then most
all
of
the
that
stuff underneath the
exactly.
surface.
And some people do a good. I think you do a great job of sharing that underside. Like you're like, hey, I'm going to tell you, like, this is. I want to inspire you. I want to guide you to the future of who you can be, but not without also sharing the struggles that you're going to go through. That it isn't just a straight line to that level of success. And for people that then look at those situations and go, oh, that they were overnight success, or they got really lucky. You never see the rest of that journey that they go through, the struggles that they go through, or frankly, all the other people that came and went and never hit that level of success that they did.
Yeah.
So for you, what do you say to people that maybe are chasing after? Okay, so we talked about overcoming those negative voices. What about people that are potentially like they're going for goals in life, whether it's for business, whether it's for personal. They've set their goals so high that they spend their whole life just reaching for something they probably will never get, and then they never are satisfied with any stage that they get. I know I can look at myself and go, oh man, 10 years ago I would dream to be where I'm at right now, and yet in this moment I'm sometimes going, but I'm not where I want to be. Yeah. And so it's good to have that motivation, but you want to spend your whole life just going, I'm never satisfied. I need to keep chasing after the next thing.
So for me, I remember there was a long period in the earlier years of my life that I felt that I had to build some kind of an empire. I had to become well known. I had to have so many people who attended the presentations I gave, and some litmus test. And all of those were outside things that I was trying to find for inward validation. What I've learned is you never find lasting contentment trying to fill an inward hole with an outward solution.
That's good.
The key is, can I mend the inward hole? And mending the inward hole is accepting the truth about myself that warts and all. I'm always going to have a messy part of my life, but warts and all, me being at my best is being true to myself, being honest with myself. That's the best version of me. When I'm in the place of being the best version of me, I set myself up for much greater success in any endeavor that I achieve in my life. So I tell people the mark of beginning on toward success is getting to know yourself and owning yourself and who you are, and admitting the areas of the weaknesses in your life, and owning those things and learning from those things. And when you learn from those things, it begins to create opportunities that you would have never dreamed of. Look, I've had some things happen in my career that I would have never, ever anticipated. And every one of those happened in a surprise moment. Meeting the general manager of now the Seattle Seahawks on a plane, and he was going through a tough period in his life many years ago, and he happened to ask me about that, and I began to just listen to him, and we began to build a friendship, and it led to all kinds of opportunities, and me just being real with him about who I was and being his friend. And it led to incredible opportunities. And so I have found that it's not about chasing, it's about being. It's not about doing, it's about understanding who you are and saying, I want to be the best version of who I am. I don't want to be someone else that someone else wants me to be. And I want to be real about my journeys. And when you become real, you begin to attract people to you that help you in your success. Listen, no one has ever succeeded on an island. Every one of us are the products of people's talents and wisdom and experience that they gave us when we developed the friendship with them. We are only as good as the community that we attract to us. And we only attract a community to us when we become vulnerable with people, transparent with people, not trying to paint a mask of someone that we're not. People can see through that. They are hungry for people who are real, who will acknowledge their pain, acknowledge their failures, acknowledge their shortcomings, but also are not afraid to be humble. And humble is not self-abasement. Humble is not shaming yourself and putting yourself down. Humility is confidently going through life. However, you know where your gifts came from. And they can be taken from you just as quickly as they were given to you. And that it's recognizing that I have a lot to offer, but those things that I become are not because of all of me. And so it's recognizing that we're just a little bit in this great big ocean, and that somehow people want to come alongside of us and say, let me help you. Let me help you with your goals. I believe in you. What can I do? When you are the kind of person that you're wanting to become, you're working on self-awareness. You're working on developing a constructive attitude that sees the world half full, not half empty. When you develop a constructive mindset, a growth mindset, you attract growing people to you. And those kinds of folks, you put them in one room together, magic somehow always happens.
Well, you talk a lot about how, when you find your purpose, how much that can change your life completely.
Yeah.
Because when you could be shifting around and hopping around, like, should I try this? Maybe this is the right thing for me, or maybe thinking there's nothing for me. Like I don't even know why I'm here. The discovery of your purpose really does line up and allows you to then start to see, okay, this isn't part of my purpose. Just get rid of that. That's tying me down. It's bringing me down, and then it kind of guides you. So how does one find their purpose?
Well, I always talk about 5 questions. First of all, we all have a purpose, and so when I say to people, number 1, what rings the joy bell of your heart? Think about those areas in your life, and don't put a judgment to it. Think about those areas in your life that when you are engaged in that area, it just lights you up. It brings you delight. It's those moments when you truly feel alive when you're doing that. And it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. And I tell people, take a piece of paper and a pen and start writing down all of those experiences in their life, those areas in their lives when they are engaged in that moment. It rings their joy bell. And so write them down and then ask, what is the common denominator between all these incredible experiences? And you begin to find a trend. And so does it ring the joy bell of my heart? Listen, you are not on purpose in your life if you are in a place of misery where you're working. And so does it ring the joy bell? Does it fill you up? Does it bring you delight? Does it bring you alive? Number 2, is it within alignment with your natural gifts, talents, and abilities? Many people say, well, that can't be my purpose because it's too easy. Well, there's a reason why it's easy for you. Yeah. Because you've been given an extra set of gift set in that area that the rest of us haven't. Someone has given you a extra load of tools because they want to make sure that you succeed better in that area than we have.
Well, what's funny is like a lot of people tend to not value things like that are easy for them. And so there's like this massive disconnect because they're like, it's so easy for me, it's not that big of a deal. Yeah. And yet for everybody else, they're like, I value you so much because that's something that's so natural for you and easy for you.
I had a friend who's a brain surgeon who said, it's not that big of a deal. Because I can go in and I can see what needs to be done and I do it and I wrap it up. It's not that big of a deal. Well, tell the rest of the world that. Yeah. And we all do things that we think are not that big of a deal, but they are a big of a deal to everybody else. And so I think the third thing is that within you go up to, you ask 5 or 10 people in your life that you trust. When you know me, what am I doing when I'm at my best? When I am having my highest impact for good with other people? And they'll say, well, it's when you're doing this and this and this. Well, guess what? It'll have a direct relationship to the 2 questions that you just asked a moment before. Does it ring the joy bell of my life? Is it within my natural gifts and talents? Is this where I shine the most? That's what you said. What am I doing in my life when I'm shining the most? And they'll tell you, well, it's when you're doing this and when you're doing that. Number 4, does it create rain in the lives of other people? When you are on purpose, you nourish the lives of other people around you in ways that you help opportunities become available to them that would have never happened if you had not been on purpose in front of them. And then I think the 5th thing is that I tell people is that if you are on purpose, it nourishes the most important relationships in your life while you're on purpose. I've had people who lose intimacy with the key people in their lives because they're so obsessed with their purpose. I don't call that being on purpose. I call that an addiction using purpose language. True purpose will never cause you to lose intimacy with those people in your box, your family, those 4 or 5 people in your life that no matter what, they will be with you the rest of your life. And so true purpose doesn't wound relationships. It enhances relationships in the pursuit of those things where you have your greatest impact.
That's
Less
amazing.
than 1% of people even know what their purpose is, and make decisions every day to order their lives around their purpose and to protect and to set boundaries so that they stay on purpose.
That's awesome. And, finding your purpose, understanding your place and understanding how to thrive and become a strong leader is really the vision and the goal of Initiative One. And whether you're just looking to get started and get your feet wet, subscribe to our platforms. Find all the different ways that you can connect, whether it's short form content, whether it's our podcast or the think tank. You can listen to the great insights of Fred, and you can either come in person if you're in the Green Bay area or subscribe online and tune into each month. We have those think tanks to tune into. So, but if you are also looking to up the level of your business, check out the resources of Initiative One. There's lots of amazing things. So this was really great, Fred. I loved having you. And we're really excited to see what the next episode is going to be about. So tune in.
Thanks, Tony. See you soon.